So you've done this before. You met someone, and within 2 weeks, your whole personality is quietly rearranged itself around them. You suddenly are into hiking, and you've never hiked before. You don't actually like hiking, you hate hiking. But because they're into hiking, you now own hiking boots. At the same time, you stop texting your friends back as quickly. You start saying that you're like super easygoing. You're, a guy's girl. I get along with guys better than girls. You're low maintenance. You're not like the other girlies out there. And you said it like it was your personality, right? And not this survival strategy that we're going to talk about. And what you did is you shrank your needs down to this Polly Pocket size thing that someone else can easily carry. And you told yourself, I'm just being super chill. Baby girl, you're trying to be chosen. And that is what we're talking about today, because then it ends. And it ends the same way that it always does. And you get stuck, sit there wondering, how do I keep losing myself inside of the people that I date? That's what we're getting into today. Welcome back to Dating Deja Vu. Well, welcome to Dating Deja Vu, the podcast where we talk about your patterns, your pitfalls, and personal growth in modern dating. I'm your host, Christina Hathaway, marriage and family therapist and dating and relationship expert. If your dating and love life looks a lot of bit of the same, it might be deja vu, but it also might be you. So let's figure it out together. What is up, Deja crew? Welcome back to another episode of Dating Deja Vu. Today is a topic, it's a big one. We're talking about being male-centered, the pick-me thing. And I want to be really clear and upfront about the spirit and what I'm saying today, because this is a phrase that's been very much thrown around online as an insult. And that's not actually how I want to use it today. I'm not here to drag anybody down. I've been a pick me. Other women have had seasons of pick me-ness, right? This isn't a character flaw that you have. This is actually a learned way of staying safe and staying loved. So I want you to realize that what we're talking about started before you ever even stepped into your first date. And I think that's really, really important. And what I want to do today is three things. I want to talk about how women actually get to this pick me place. It's a wiring thing. It's not a weakness. Then I want to name the behaviors that are connected with them, the stuff that shows up in your actual relationships, because we can't change a pattern that we won't acknowledge or look at. And then, of course, I want to give you guys something that you can do to repair the repair work, the real stuff, and how to start building esteem that doesn't depend on a man, and how to start setting boundaries without feeling like a monster or feeling guilty, and how to stop pouring all of yourself into someone within the first 2 weeks of dating them. Okay. What I'm going to talk about is actually a model, and I want to give credit where credit is due. It's called a post-induction therapy model created by Pia Melody out of, not Bermuda Ranch. What was it called? Oh my God. It's where all of the celebrities go when they crash out. It was Bermuda. I forget, guys. Anyways, post-induction therapy is the model, and we're going to get through each piece of it because it is based in codependency, and it helps you understand where codependency comes from and how it runs in your adult relationships. And I want to explain this to you in plain English. Now, if what we talk about really kind of makes you feel a little bit on edge, or it opens up something for you, obviously this episode is all educational based. If you need real support, please go work with a licensed professional. Got it? Okay, let's get into it. So what is pick me? And what is it not? I think that's important too. So I'm going to define it because I think the internet has just labeled it on any woman who is trying to date a guy. Being male-centered means your sense of self orbits around male approval. The way you feel about yourself rises and falls based on whether a man is pleased with you and your behavior, how you look. Your worth has an external power source, and the man or men in your life are holding the plug. The pick me version of you is also incredibly competitive. And I want to say this because obviously I'm a Bravo girly. I love reality TV. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because we're seeing this with Amanda Batula. Like, it's so obvious, especially with what I'm about to talk about. And in the first few episodes of Love Island with Melanie, you can see that kind of pick pick me obsessive behavior that Melanie distributes not only with Sincere, but then with every other man who gives her attention. Now, once this episode airs, I think she's working her way out of that. I'm not sure, but there are moments of clarity, which is awesome. But this one, I thought was this portion of my notes, I thought was very important for you is that competitive nature. It's the part that distance you from other women so you can win. You're not like other girls. You're a guy's girl. You're super low maintenance and you make yourself so supposedly easy or the easy option that you don't ask for much, right? You're the one who's being cool about whatever's going on because somewhere in your brain, there's a belief that the woman who's easy, and I'm not talking sexual, is the one that gets to stay, the one that wins. And we see this with Amanda after all the reunions and the aftermath that she very much knew all of the girls that West was dating, but was the cool girl about it and thus was chosen, right? And here's the thing about this. What it is not is you're not, it's not being feminine. It's not liking men. It's not wanting a partner or enjoying being wanted. None of that is a problem. Okay. Wanting love is very human. The problem is when wanting turns into self-erasing, when being chosen costs you, you. That is the line. And that's what we're going to spend this episode learning how you know where your line is. Because let's face it, most of us weren't taught this because we wouldn't be here if we were. So, how did we get here? Let's get into the codependency roots. So, Pia Melody explains this work, and I think it's super useful because in the way she's built the post-induction therapy model, she's built it around 5 lenses, if you will. And the idea is that the way we function in adult relationships traces back to the way we were nurtured as children. And this is not a blame your parents, call them and cuss them out, as I always say. This is in a way of like your nervous system learned what it costs to receive love. And I want you to be aware of that. She talks again about those 5 lenses of codependency and how they show up in our lives. And I want to walk you through each specific lens because the pick me pattern is basically all the 5 lenses together. So the first lens is self-esteem. Melody makes this distinction that changes how I thought about self-esteem. So there's self-esteem and then there's other esteem. Self-esteem comes from inside. It's that quiet sense, what I tell you guys all the time, that your worth is in your existence. Nothing is required you to be worthy. While other esteem comes from outside of you. Worth is something that you have to keep earning through being the pretty one, being the agreeable one, the useful one, all of that helps you feel wanted enough. And if you grew up in an environment where you receive love, if you performed or achieved, or more importantly, you lost love and connection if you didn't, you learn to run on other esteem. And women running on other esteem are going to draw the biggest external validation source they can find to feel good, which is often male attention. And it's not shallow, you guys. This is something you've learned and were conditioned to be in childhood. And now in your grown-up life, you're still trying to earn the thing that should have been yours in the first place. The second area is boundaries. Our boundaries are a system that tells us where we end and other people begin. What's okay with me? What's not okay with me, right? What will I let in? What will I keep out? Boundaries are incredibly important. But for a lot of us, those boundaries never developed because our families, like having boundaries in our families, might have felt dangerous. It might have felt selfish. We could have even been punished for it. Okay. In some families, we grew up with walls where the emotions, like everything was swept under the rug. We didn't talk about our emotions. We didn't express ourselves. And then in other families, the boundaries were like a wide open door where parents were sharing things that they shouldn't have been sharing about their own personal relationships. They may go through your things. That's a huge boundary violation. And everyone kind of takes on everyone else's emotions. They feel responsible for others. And that can be really, really detrimental. I actually had clients in the past talk about how they're so absorbed in what they think everyone else wants from them that they really don't even know what they want in themselves because they absorb the other person. And what does that mean, right? Well, their moods become your moods, their wants become your plans, and there's no membrane between you and them. And like this particular client, she said, I would be in a great mood and then my husband would come home and be not in a great mood, and because of that, I wouldn't be able to calm down until I saw him calm down. So she absorbed his feelings. The third lens is knowing your reality. So, your reality, you guys, are your thoughts, your feelings, and your emotions, right? This is being able to answer very easy questions about yourself. What do you think? What do you feel? How do you actually, what you want to do, right? And when you're male centered, you often genuinely don't know, like my client, because you've spent so long reading the room and becoming whatever the room needed of you, right? That is when your own opinions can become very faint as my client, right? You can tell me what he likes for dinner, but when I ask you, you go quiet because you don't fucking know. Okay? The fourth lens are about your wants and needs. And Melody talks about the codependent struggles of identifying what they want, let alone asking for what they want. So, in my conversation with this particular client, I said, I want you to stop before he comes home and I want you to just take a snapshot. How are you feeling inside and what do you want to accomplish for that night? Right? Because she'd say, like, I won't go to the gym until he feels better. I won't do this until he feels better. I'm like, no, I want you to create a list and you become the constant. You're the constant in your life. You're showing up for yourself. It does not depend on him. Right? And for individuals who were trained that having their needs was too much, or not having your needs met at all, the pick me version tries to be chill, because if they don't want anything, then they can't get hurt, right? So their needs get buried so deep that they forget who they are. And the last lens is moderation. And this is the ability to feel and express yourself in a reasonable volume instead of, all the way on or all the way off. Codependency, as you guys can hear, can tend to live in these extremes. So you go from zero to completely crashed out real quick. Or more importantly, you go from very, very single to like completely consumed with someone in about 10 days, right? There is no middle gear. There's no gray area. There is no neutral. So as you hear all 5 of these, you can probably start to see it, right? That the pick me woman has like a shaky self-worth. She has no boundaries. She has a very fuzzy sense of herself. And she has buried her set of wants and needs and has no off switch. And this is survival. This is survival that she never learned in childhood. But again, we look at it and we use it as an insult when really this is a wound. This is a very, very deep wound. So, what does the male-centered pick-me look like in relationships? So, to get concrete, which I think is important because this is where we can begin recognizing this in ourselves. Checklist. You overgive way too early. You're cooking for him, you're driving to him, you're rearranging your week for him by week 2. This is hilarious because this was totally me. I remember this guy, Brandon, he really wanted to learn he wanted to quit smoking. This was a long time ago. And I like went out and bought every fucking thing I could buy for him to quit smoking. And I would think I was dating him for like 2 weeks. It was so ridiculous. And what I was doing is I was confusing intensity for intimacy, which I talk a lot about here. I've also talked about PMLD's work on love addiction, and the love addict assigns way too much time and value to her partner and not enough to their own life. We start disappearing my world into their world. And you become a chameleon, right? Their taste of music, their politics, that's a big fucking one these days. Their friends, their schedule. You struggle to tell me what's actually yours anymore, right? You tolerate things that fucking hurt you, and you can call it, right? But you call it being understanding. They could be inconsistent. You make sense of it. They pull back. You get more accommodating. And part of you believes that if you can just be chill enough, agreeable enough, low maintenance enough, that they will stay. You compete instead of connect. You compete with his exes, the other women in his life, with other women in general, right? Because if your worth is the thing being decided, then every other woman is competition for the prize, right? And you abandon yourself in small ways constantly. You say you're fine, you are not fine. You say you don't mind, you fucking mind. You laugh off the thing that actually hurts. Each one of these things is tiny, but together, a slow leak. And over months, you look up and there's a lot less of you in the room, in the relationship. And here's the thing that no one talks to you about, except for me, because this is Dating Deja Vu. A lot of what makes this self-erasing more magnetic is it attracts to you the wrong partner. It attracts to you someone who is avoidant, who wants closeness without any effort, the person who's happy to be adored from a comfortable distance is going to love a woman who asks for nothing and gives everything. This is called a love avoidant, and PMLD maps the way this works. The overgiving love addict and the distancing love avoidant find each other on purpose. And it feels like chemistry, but it's two old wounds working together. And it is so true. And oftentimes I pinpoint this shit in seconds of meeting people. Who's the love addict? Who's the avoidant? And it's a push-pull. It's a push-pull that you see in, relationships. It's the push-pull. Even Anaya and Casey, we're seeing a little bit of a push-pull there where he's just like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is too much. I thought you were chill. I thought you were cool. Now you're crashing out for the first time I talked to somebody else. And you're starting to see a little bit of him pulling back. Now, I don't know if he's an avoidant per se. I'm going to need more information on this. So we talked about what it is, but why is the ending staying the same, right? Because that's the deja vu, which is the name of this podcast. So why does it keep ending in the same way? So this is a deja vu because that's what this podcast is called. Why do the relationships that you're in keep producing the same outcome? So this goes back to that map or that dance, because when you lead with self-erasing, you train the people in the relationships that you're in on how to treat you. And you select the people who will go along with how to treat you, okay? Because that's all you know. You teach him or her that your needs are optional. So he treats your needs like they're optional, right? You teach him that you will bend, you will do a fucking back bend so he doesn't have to bend at all. You hand over all of the power to define the relationships to that person. And then you're surprised when it gets defined in a way that doesn't include much of you and your needs. The problem with this is that it causes resentment, and that resentment builds up. It will always build up. You can give yourself away for a while, but eventually the bill comes. You start to feel unseen, taken for granted, taken advantage of. Like you do all the work. And you do, because that's literally what you signed up for. But the trap is that you usually will either blame him entirely, or blame yourself for not giving enough. And you miss the actual mechanism, which is that you've abandoned yourself first and then waited for him to fill that hole. Take it in. He's never going to fill it. He will never feel that. Other esteem can't be installed by another person, right? It can't be fixed by another person. That's the whole problem. You're trying to get from the outside a thing that is only generated from within. So no matter who the partner is, whoever it is, you will end up in this spot over and over and over again. You will be empty. You'll be resentful. You'll be confused. You'll be telling your friends, I gave him everything, because you did. And that is the issue. That's the deja vu. The same ending, a different face, because the variables that stayed constant across all of your relationship was that you gave yourself to them. Take it in, babies. I know it's hard. And I want to say, I have been there. And I want to talk about what I did. How did I get out of this? What was the work? And I'm going to organize this work around those 5 lenses that we talked about, right? So PMLD's model, so the esteem, the boundaries, the wants and needs, the moderation, all of that, because this is where the repair needs to happen. Now, you don't have to do each all at once, but let's start with the most important. We need to rebuild esteem from within. This is really the foundation of everything. So we're going to start with this one. You have to start noticing or sourcing, I would say, your worth internally instead of plugging it into a man or a partner. Practically, this means catching the moment, kind of like I talked with my client, where your sense of self hands the controls to somebody else. If he doesn't text you back, right, your whole mood collapses. Or like we see with Anaya, where Casey's talking to the girl, she crashes out. Your esteem just went external. It left outside of you. When that happens, you say, my worth has just left the building and I'm waiting for him to mail it back to me. And we don't want that. In post-induction therapy, the frame is that worth is inherently yours just for existing, that you don't have to earn your value. It comes with you. And that's a hard thing for one to feel if you never received it in childhood, as we talked about. So we build it through action. You do esteemable things. You keep promises to yourself. You follow through on the workout, the boundary, the plan you made for your own life, exactly like I said to my client. And every kept promise that you keep to yourself is a deposit into an account that no man or partner can ever touch. So keep those promises. Number 2, build boundaries even when it feels uncomfortable, mean, you feel guilty. It's just telling the truth about where your limit is. That's it. It is not punishment. You do not need to write a 5-page paragraph essay to explain it. Because again, if you grew up with walls that were completely down, your first boundaries were going to feel awful the first time you set them. They'll feel rude. You'll feel selfish, like you're risking a relationship. The feeling is not a sign that you're doing something wrong or the boundary is wrong. It's just discomfort of doing something new and doing something you don't do before. So let's just start small with lower stakes, right? So don't try to set these huge emotional boundaries. Say no to a plan that doesn't work for your schedule, right? Instead of contorting your whole week to make it work for that person, right? Or say a preference out loud, like I'd actually rather do something Saturday than Friday, right? And let there be a pause before you rush to make that person comfortable. That pause alone is building skill. You don't have to, it's like building muscle. Like you're not going to deadlift in one day. Like it takes time, it takes reps. Then watch how setting the boundary, what it reveals, because in a good partner, they will adjust to a reasonable boundary. But with the wrong partner, that boundary feels like betrayal. And that information alone will save you years in relationships. Hear me on that. Number three, we got to get back to your reality. You have to relearn what you think, what you feel, what you want, because you've been outsourcing it for quite some time, right? Again, my client literally has a hard time saying this. So we have to get into the habit of checking in with ourselves before we check in with them. Okay. So before you ask what they want to do, ask yourself, what do I want to do? What would I like in this situation? And actually sit there and wait for the answer. Before you agree on anything, pause long enough to notice if you actually agree. Even a 5-second gap in this situation is enough for your brain to find its own signal and kind of wash out all the noise of everyone else. Journaling helps out here, texting a friend or your coach or maybe your therapist if you have access to that, or talking about it in therapy. It allows for you to explain your reality in your own words before they kind of evaporate in your people pleasing of that person. So very much focus on that. Number 4 is then reclaiming those wants and needs. You're allowed to need things. That's a whole sentence. I don't need to say anything else. You're allowed to need things without being high maintenance, without being annoying, right? They make you a person. So start by just identifying what your needs are, because they've been buried for a very long time. Like, what do you need to feel safe in a relationship? What do you need to feel respected in a relationship? What do you want more of or less of? You can ask for what you want, and you can admit that you actually need something from someone else. That's a big thing too, right? The practice is asking the person directly without an apology tour, like I said. Not, this is probably so annoying, so I totally get it if, you can't possibly do it. No, we're not doing that. Just, hey, heads up, I'm going to need a change of plans. Done. Clean. Direct. This is what we call hyper. This is what we call interdependence. You're not totally self-sufficient and needing nothing from people like me, the hyper independent person, but you're also not overly helplessly needy and need everything from a person. This is meeting in the middle where you can have needs and also meet the needs of others. Okay. Still there, still going to be there. And number 5 is moderating your intensity. This is where that off switch needs to be installed. Okay. Learning to do relationships in this kind of middle gear rather than like, fifth gear with fucking NOS, right? Instead of going into things immediately. Nitrous oxide is NOS if you don't know. So when you meet someone you like, okay, the pull is going to be towards the, mega fast lane. You want to rearrange your life, give them everything, go from 0 to completely consumed. The practice is to slow this down on purpose. Keep your friends, keep your gym, keep fucking Taco Tuesday. Let them earn access to your time instead of giving them the keys on day 3. Okay? This is called containment in the post-induction therapy, and it's the ability to feel a lot and not act on it immediately. You can be excited about someone new and still not abandon your entire life within a month. It is possible. Both things are true. The excitement is fine. The merging immediately is the problem. So those are the 5 steps of repair. And I'm going to leave you with a practice because I want you to actually work on this coming week. I want you to catch yourself in one self-abandonment. Okay, so just one. So like my client, she self-abandons when her husband comes home. It could be a moment when you're saying you're fine when you're not. A moment when you agree to do something you don't want to. The moment your whole mood shifts or you hand it to someone because they haven't replied to you. We're not trying to fix it yet. We just want to notice it. Say to yourself quietly, like, there's that thing. There's the leak, right? I'm handing myself over. Because you can't plug the leak if you can't see it. And every woman I've ever worked through on this has all had to start at the same place. I mean, I talked to you about what I talked to my client about today. And it's not a dramatic boundary showdown, like who's going to win. It's just finally seeing small moments where you leave yourself, right? You leave yourself. And if you see it in enough times, you'll start to catch it earlier. As you catch it earlier, you'll start to interrupt it more. The more you interrupt it enough, it will not, you'll realize like it's not into your day-to-day relationships, right? You're still yourself. And it's not going to change who you are or your identity or how amazing you are in relationships. It's just going to keep you, you. And that's what I want you to walk away with today. Being male centered was never about being weak, being shallow. It was a kid who learned love had to be earned. And she's doing her best, sweetie. She's doing her best with the kit she was handed, the shit she was handed, I should say. So don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed of how you got here. But you get to put the shit down now. I give you permission. You get to be the source of your own worth. You get to have boundaries. You get to have needs. And you get to have a self that doesn't dissolve the second someone walks into their life, or someone they like, of course. The right person doesn't want the small, easiest, most agreeable version of you, because that's not who you are. They want you, the one with opinions and limits and quirks and a full life. The picked me act was never the thing that made you lovable. It was the thing that kept you safe and kept you, the real you, hidden. We stop auditioning today. We talk about auditioning a lot here. You were never the one who needed to be picked. You're the one doing the choosing. That's it. If this was something that hit at the heart of you, share this with someone that would benefit from this podcast. If you're like, let's throw it in the group chat. Let's throw it in the group chat because your girl needs more reviews. I need more followers. And I think that this is going to be one of those podcasts that is super fucking shareable. If you haven't already, like I said, I'd love for you to follow the show if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Or if you're watching my beautiful face on YouTube, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. And also give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok at Dating Deja Vu Pod. And if you really, really want to get frisky with me and be very people pleasing, I'd love for you to give me a 5-star rating and review. For those interested, I do take dating and relationships. I work with couples as well as people dating in a private practice in Arizona. It is telehealth only. So if you want more information on that, you can check out the email below and I will connect you with my services. Other than that, I'm going to leave you and remind you of what I do every single week and remind you that it might be deja vu, but it also might be you. Bye-bye.